Okay, sit down, gather around, have a cup of coffee, because this is going to be one hell of a particular thought piece. The main goal of this channel has always been in part to educate people about important issues around the world from a certain ideological perspective. Whether this is an educated point of view, that's besides the point. But I want to state for the record that a lot of the online and offline discourse, especially the political one, has been hurt by the internet alone and what it implies in general. Let me explain. You might have heard of a recently popular conspiracy theory online called the dead internet theory, which has been making a lot of the rounds recently. It is a theory that describes an internet far from the one we knew in its inception in the 90s and more centralized in a monopoly of a few platforms and mostly consisting nearly of entirely by bot traffic and interactions. Don't get me wrong, this is very much a 4chan theory conspiracy theory stemming from the export, but I've come to realize that more and more of this has slowly started to ring nearly true, and I really hate to say this, but because in such like 4chan there's too much room for all sorts of vitriolic discourse, even anti-Semitic one, to foster amongst those conspiracy theories. And also, none of this dead internet theory is obviously ringing true all the time. We've seen stuff like ChatGPT or similar generative AIs take special forces a normal thing, and I say normal between heavy quotations because it certainly has been astroturfed to obscene levels. We've even seen the constant race between SEO written companies to get to every first result on Google and other search engines. It's a kind of stuff I already discussed on the PlayStation startup sound video previously, and one particular thing I learned about in that video is that this will distort the online discourse in reality to such a degree that we won't even know what's true or false online. But the reality is that this has been even not just a thing that happens since times afar from the inception of the internet alone, but it is also now too late to do something valuable about it. This distortion of online reality itself, even though it doesn't affect as much of the offline or IRL life, has hurt the internet's discourse and even the offline discourse a lot. And it makes sense because you now look at a typical social media like Twitter, one of the very few platforms that have monopolized all of the internet traffic today, and you see trending topics with all sorts of artificial discourse of all kinds. Recently, I was reminded of one of my friends who I mentioned in the BreadTube Grifters video, who became a political nihilist, where he recently joined up the Worker Front in Spain. Recently, the Worker Front has been absolutely devastated by the whole internet for accusations of bigotry, Islamophobia, transphobia, all sorts of things that Vox will do in Spain, certainly. But then this friend of mine told me that their ideology is quite different, and I was at first not sure how to take it. He told me that the Worker Front's ideology is one of respecting gender identity and all sorts of things, but being against combative ideologies regarding gender identity and the sort. And this is a thing that previously the Podemos party has been blamed for creating a combative gender ideology to the point of demonizing people instead of defending their right to gender identity. Let's be frank, if these sorts of things weren't so aggressive with their combative ideologies, people wouldn't have a reason to let the bourgeoisie to let out their worst monsters as leaders, like what happened with Trump or Boris Johnson and so on, which, don't get me wrong, are obvious fascists. But the leftist discourse especially was so embroiled in the sort of toxic, combative ideology nonsense that it even hurt itself in the process, like the TF2 scout missing with the Boston Basher multiple times. It alienated people even more from their ideology because instead of protecting the marginalized classes, it spent too much time trying to attack and destroy everything they claim to be against. And it's that lack of compassion for the kind of for their kind they tried to protect that draws people away from the left. And it's mainly all because of this divisive, destructive internet discourse that even is so absolutely artificial, you could tell it cannot be even made by a worker class citizen, not by even a someone human. We've been too busy canceling people on social media for very minimal things. We've been told we're too busy even making discourse about such non-important things like cultural war nonsense, which has been always a sort of distraction from real issues like climate change, or even then the very capitalist and fascist system we're so deeply trapped into. I can easily blame this very system trapping us for this sort of fake internet discourse, even if it's about the current Russo-Ukrainian war going on, because it has conditioned us into being too comfortable within the system to actually fight against it and organize properly against it. There's even a point where actual political parties all around the globe will use this fake internet discourse to get advantage from it. It should start making sense that the internet as it currently is has hurt our political and societal perceptions so much that our points of view on the world have been heavily distorted by this post-truth era disinformation all along. And I'm here hoping that this video, if anything, will help you understand an important thing about online discourse. Even then, very recently, I've been dealing with a breakup with a person I knew from a while ago, and I don't want to mention who it is because I don't want to cause any particular drama with this person, but I have got suspicions that even people like them, especially online, and with a long distance open-ended relationship like the one I had with this person, are not about real people. It could have been easily created by some sort of AI or entity that's meant to distort my views on society alone and trap me within this fake online discourse thing. Could this be pure speculation? Yes. Could this be a complete exaggeration? Yes. Could this be completely plausible? I don't know. I will know if I was probably something like a CIA plant who's willing to share this knowledge with the world at my own risk, or anything similar. But at least, even if this person is not really an AI or a psyop, I know this person's perspective of the world has been equally heavily distorted by this sort of fake online discourse that I'm pretty sure is certain. I moved on, and I got over that breakup quickly in a couple days or so, but it just comes to say that nothing will compare to the actual real-world interactions you'll get with real-world people. And I should obviously state for the record that no, I am not run by an AI, I am not fake, I am as real as it can get. As far as I'm aware, I'm conscious in this world and I am still here as a normal human being. I know you. You might be an isolated, lonely person who might not have real friends outside of the online world. But all I can say about that is that there's plenty of fish in the sea. I know we're still in the middle of a pandemic which can risk the health of so many people, but now that even things like COVID have been dissipating into this sort of new normal to the point of having even the means to prevent something like COVID catching up to us, now it's a good time to go out and, in the proper words, touch grass. There might be equally socially awkward people out there who you can relate to and start a real conversation with. Even all it takes is just joining the right public space for each person and experience something new. And that takes a lot of introspection to know what are we comfortable with. It's incredibly naive to be so conditioned by online destructive discourse that you constantly live in fear of the outside world. Just build up compassion for the outside except for fascists, of course, and get to interact with real people. Please, I think everyone on this planet should be ahead of the curve compared to the internet by this point.